Great to be on the show. Very excited to be the first non-American as well. So hopefully this turns out to be a special episode for you. By way of introduction, I run Sauce, which is a micro VC fund focused on digital first consumer brands. So the D2C ecosystem, largely brands selling on their own websites, selling on marketplaces like Amazon, etc. And also of late, we've started investing into enablers of the D2C ecosystem. So these are basically tech companies which are building the nuts and bolts to enable D2C brands to succeed. The market that we focus on is India, which is obviously a very high growth and exciting market, and has a few unique characteristics which we can talk about as we progress the conversation. But yeah, we're into our second fund now, and it's been an exciting 3 years for us. We've invested across categories in consumer, so personal care and beauty, food and beverages, travel and lifestyle, accessories, apparel, whatever sort of exciting the new consumer today is fair game for Sauce. Yeah.
You talked about India being unique, and oftentimes the conversations that I've been a part of, and Don, you can keep me honest, we look to China and India for sort of the future on what's coming, because the consumer is sort of more mobile, a lot more sort of savvy and stuff. Trying to see if we can get some learnings from the India market. So perhaps if you could just describe to us, even like open-ended, what is the India ecosystem? What does it look like from a consumer perspective, and what is the impact to the to sort of innovation and brands that you're seeing?
Firstly, if you talk about the Indian consumer, I think with the increasing penetration of the internet, the increasing adoption of social media, right? Data being so cheap, India's got one of the cheapest data rates in the world, right? Mobile adoption has been very, very rapid, right? So what's happened is that the Indian consumer 10 years ago used to be, very backward in their awareness, and the exposure levels to newer products and the newer trends was very poor. All of that has accelerated. So the Indian consumers suddenly, witnessing a deluge of information, and is at par in terms of awareness levels to any consumer in possibly the US, right? So there's that much more content and that much more information being served to them. However, if you talk about the choices available, right? Till 5 years ago, I would say that India was still sort of starved for choices and variety, and also brands in every category, right? And we're starting to see that change very rapidly as consumer tastes and preferences are evolving with more awareness. You're seeing more and more brands which are cropping up to target those specific gaps, right? So what you're seeing is a market today where young brands are emerging to target these new niche opportunities. On the supply side, the interesting thing that's happened, and in many ways, India's kind of leapfrogged. If you look at the States, for instance, it started off with obviously the mom and pop stores, and then organized retail happened, and the Costco's and the Walmarts emerged, and you ended up having a very large format retail, right? India never went into that phase at all. India went from mom and pop stores, tens of millions of them, directly on e-commerce, right? So you've leapfrogged organized retail in a big way. So if you look at India, I would say just 7 or 8% today of retail in India is actually large format stores, right? And you're suddenly seeing that e-commerce, which is kind of a new phenomenon here, has already taken a fairly large chunk, like it's probably 4 or 5% and growing very rapidly, right? So you now have, what you used to on the supply side, you used to have these very large CPG players, right? The Proctors and the Mondelez and the Unilevers of the world. They used to dominate CPG by sheer strength of distribution, because it's not easy to distribute to tens of millions of distributed shops. So you needed warehouses, you needed trucks, and you needed Salesforce on the ground. All of that was an entry barrier for young brands. But with e-commerce, you suddenly got a level playing field, and you're seeing this new crop of consumers getting targeted very easily and being supplied to very easily by young brands. The entry barriers have dropped, and therefore we're seeing this sudden explosion of young brands emerging. And then finally, on the technology side, it's been a complete revolution, because the building blocks for e-commerce have come into play in the last 4 or 5 years in a big way. I know venture capital has had a fairly strong role to play in that, bringing in sort of capital to support infrastructure to help e-commerce succeed, right? So we're talking about warehousing, we're talking about logistics, tracking, shipping, and all the beautiful APIs which make the UX far more richer and engaging for consumers to shop and have a better experience, right? So you suddenly seen all of these forces come together, and and therefore India is like a melting pot of creativity, young exciting brands emerging, and the consumer for the first time ever, I would say, in the last sort of since we became independent, possibly has so much choice, right? So the consumer is seriously spoiled for choice, which again has its own challenges. But for now, it's a very exciting, very high growth market.